And we're live. We're live, guys. Welcome to another episode of Good Morning Liberty. It's Wednesday morning, August 29th, 9:30 a.m. Pacific time here in downtown Los Angeles from my home office, the Grand 10th Amendment Center. I want to thank you so much for being here with me, whether you're watching live here in the morning or if it's in the afternoon on the East Coast, or if you're watching from the archives later on. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let's look over at the chat. Hey, Gold Standard with Alan Mosley. Finally, I'm enough of a responsible adult to tune in on time. Thanks, Alan. I really appreciate being here. Hey, if you want to do, and I want to record this episode with you, Alan, for your show, let's try to do this, if you can, next week, Wednesday. So what is that, like the 2nd or 3rd of September? But we should message sometime later today and make this happen. Hi to Scouse Jack. This was hard to find. Went to the channel. Couldn't find the stream. I'm not sure. Maybe I have to do something with the channel settings to make sure that the live stream is set up on top. Hi to Dusted. Woodsider is correct. Click on the subscription. You'll get a notification. Yeah, there's a little bell. So when you go to our channel, you definitely want to hit subscribe. But then you can also get notifications. So you get the notifications every time we either upload a video or we go live. So that's a good way to do it as well. Alan, a week after, there's an unknown upstart named Tom Woods coming. I'll go post Tom Woods anytime. The week after, so that's probably like the 11th of September. That would be actually a good day. So let's do that. So for those of you guys watching, I'm going to be on the Gold Standard with Alan Mosley. He's a really good friend that I finally got to meet in person in New Orleans this summer, so that will be really cool. Scouse Jack says you were sent over from Ron Paul's stream. And I talked about this a couple of episodes ago, how I watch most of Ron Paul's episodes in the morning, and he goes on at 9 a.m. Pacific time, and I thought, what a good idea if I'm going to start doing this. And I'm doing it Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I know Ron does it every morning, unless there's a conference, they'll pre-record something. But my goal is to do Monday, Wednesday, Friday for now, and then expand in the future at 9:30. So I'm going from around 9:30 to about 10 a.m. Pacific time. I'd like to go a little shorter, but I keep rambling, as you notice. And my hope is that someone else will pick up the torch and go at 10 a.m., and then maybe 10:30 or 11, and we're going to build this block of Liberty talk, Liberty news, Liberty discussions here on YouTube. Ron has clearly set the foundation. He and Daniel McAdams are doing an incredible, and Chris Rossini, who does the Friday show there, do an incredible job. Oh, yeah, the 9/11 spectacular YM anti-war on the Gold Standard. That will be awesome. We can definitely do that show. That'll be really cool. So, of course, thank you again. I'm rambling. I appreciate everybody for being here. Make sure to smash those likes because that helps us get the word out. Hit subscribe. I haven't been saying that enough, but our subscriptions are certainly going up. I've been looking at the statistics. We're getting a lot more views, so this is actually really good. We're getting the word out, and we're starting to spread to some other areas as well. For example, we've been exploring, if you're on our newsletter, email newsletter list, which is 10thamendmentcenter.com/register, I sent out an update talking about the whole social media purge, which I've covered quite a bit here, and then the banking purge, which also is happening. The financial purge is also the pressure on people who have dissident voices against the status quo. And so we've been exploring some other resources. I mean, here we are broadcasting on YouTube. I mean, we're in enemy territory, but as long as we can continue to do this, I absolutely want to reach as many new people as possible. But we also want to start going to other platforms. For example, there's BitChute is another video platform. I haven't figured out if there's a live video option. Mike Adams from Natural News has set up Reel.video, so we're looking at that as well. But there's also the social channels like Minds.com is where we're putting most of our kind of side energy into building up a new network over there. But I'll reiterate, only about 10% of our overall website traffic at 10thamendmentcenter.com comes from social media referrals. We got 90% of people going direct or through Google searches or through our RSS feed, our email newsletter, et cetera, et cetera. So anyways, if you like these videos here on YouTube, make sure smash those likes, subscribe so you get notifications. And yes, we do broadcast 9:30 a.m. Pacific time after Ron Paul's Liberty Report on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for us here. Now today, I really want to talk about one main issue, and that is 3D printed guns, defense distributed, and the heroic Cody Wilson. Just the latest update on what's going on. He did his first ever press release yesterday, and so I mean, for being a rookie at this kind of stuff, the guy is really, really sharp. And there's some video, you can find it. People shared it all over Facebook. One of my Facebook friends who I also met in New Orleans at the same event from the Libertarian Party, Mises Caucus in New Orleans, which was a really cool event. He actually got into this this conference, and he got to ask Cody a question, so it was pretty cool. But let's get over to the first article that I want to cover today on this, and it comes from Ars Technica. Cyrus Farivar, who has not been kind to me personally or to the 10th Amendment Center in our efforts to nullify the NSA, which you'd think you'd find at least some compassion for that message over at this publication, because they don't seem to be in support of NSA spying, but of course they just think we're Confederates or something like that. So we must have been racist doing that against Obama. That's the message we always heard. But this is a really interesting article. That means doesn't mean I'm not going to cover what he has to say, because it's a pretty good article. I found a bunch of them from CBS and Newsweek and on and on and on. But I like this because they put a lot of quotes in from Cody, and I think that in and of itself is some fair reporting. So this is the title. After court, ready, aim, fire, of course. After court order, 3D printed gun pioneer now sells pay what you want CAD files. Now, this is just brilliant strategy. When it comes to advancing liberty, we can't just focus on getting the message out. We can't just say, read Rothbard, read Mises. I mean, that might be a big part of it. But there has to be action that shows that liberty is good, that liberty can work. Lead by example. It draws people. It's like the tip of the spear, the flag, the rallying cry. I gave a speech on this. I did the keynote speech at Pork Fest number 10. This is 5 years ago now. I was a substitute for Lou Rockwell. I play the substitute game pretty well, I guess, over the years. They call on me as backups. Hi to Justin. Justin says Cody's following the direction of the founders. Ignore what is unconstitutional. That's awesome. Absolutely. And I gave the speech talking about going from zero to Rothbard. And if you're not familiar with Murray Rothbard, here's like probably the most famous anarcho-capitalist who ever lived. And my message at the Free State Project, which is heavily leans in that direction. There are many political activists as well. But my message was really, you don't get to that point where, no matter where you get off the highway of liberty, if you're a statist of some sort, a minarchist or a full voluntarist, ANCAP, whatever it may be, however far you want to go, you don't get there in one step. You don't get there without action. You don't get there by talking trash to people who don't understand the message, because we all went to government-run or government-approved schools. Well, most of us. We'll just say all of us. I know. I mean, I was a total statist. I probably am to some point today. I'll look back at the views that I have and laugh at myself some point in the future. Like, whoa, Boldin, you were pretty dumb at that point. And you don't just get there. So it was how to get from 0 to 60, 0 to Rothbard. You don't get there in one step. And it has to have strategy. And for me, a big part of that strategy is concrete action. Action steps that show that liberty actually works, that the world doesn't come to an end. There's a great example with weed. I talk about this all the time. 10 years ago, and I started the 10th Amendment Center back in 2006 when George Bush was in office. And we were often called by the right, like we are today, communist, progressive, lib turds, trash, anytime you just oppose the people in power. Of course, that switched to us being SPLC, highlighted racists and neo-Confederates when Obama was in power, but that's another conversation. So when I used to talk to right-leaning or right-wing groups back in the early days of doing this, they were very uncomfortable with the idea of saying, well, the states, the people of each state have the right under the Constitution. Well, I mean, there is a moral and individual right as well. But under the constitutional structure, the people of each state have the right to determine how they want to deal with a plant, marijuana. And this was a very uncomfortable thing for many conservatives. And I know it probably still is for some. But I think the more common response, instead of like, oh, you're a commie, why don't you move to Cuba, which is the type of things that we would hear at first and in person, I would get a lot of like crossed arms, people pissed off, irritated, but at the end they would get it. But these days, instead of being upset, it's more like, nah, why don't you pick a more important issue? That one's done because everyone recognizes that it's not fully done, but it's getting there. Or, I don't approve of it in my own life, but if the wackos in California want to do this, then they can. So that is how the system's supposed to work. I don't approve of something in my own life, but if people in another area want to do it, it's not up to me to dictate to them how to live. I should live by example and show people the right way, according to me. Now, we all have different views of what's right. I don't even agree with myself all the time. So you should get in on those conversations one of these days. But where was I going with that? Let's go back to Cody Wilson. I think this is more important than anything. This is a really big deal. So strategy. So he was stopped, as we should all know at this point, from releasing these blueprints, these files to teach people how, or so people could learn how to build a gun. Then he fought it, and then this year the State Department backed off, and he was able to do it. And a few days before the date that he was able to do it, he put it online, and then he got attacked by all kinds of people. There's a lawsuit against him. It created what's called the Streisand effect. I talk about this quite a bit. Look it up if you don't know what it is. It's reference to Barbara Streisand. But basically, they're drawing attention to it. And in just, I think, the 2 short days that Defense Distributed had these files up, they were downloaded over 25,000 times. So a number of attorneys general in states around the country sued. This is harming states' rights. Of course, they want to use that kind of term to control people instead of the other way around. So they got a court to basically say, oh, you can't put these online for people to release for free. And that's specifically what it says. So Cody, being brilliant and heroic, because he could just say, well, let's fight this out, continue to fight it out in court. But no, he actually wants to find a way to get the information to people and let people make their own choice. So on Tuesday, he announced that he would, quote, continue to comply with a federal court order. He's complying with the court order, forbidding him from internationally publishing CAD files, computer-aided design files of firearms. Wilson said he would also begin selling copies of his 3D printed gun files for a suggested price of $10 each. And it's amazing. During the press conference, which was about 45, 50 minutes, he's looking at his phone saying, oh, there's another one, $1, a few cents. Oh, someone wants it for free. Come on, make it $10. He's not really trying to raise money. I know he's raised a bunch of money. Bitcoin.com, Roger Ver has done a lot of matching contributions, and about 50% of these, so around 300,000 that he's raised has been in cryptocurrency, which makes sense that this would happen. They're trying to shut him down. Certainly financial institutions will probably cut him off at some point. I won't be surprised when that happens. But if he's getting his money in crypto, he'll be able to spend it in crypto, and the financial institutions won't be able to stop that. So he says, quote, I'm happy to become the iTunes of 3D guns if I can't be Napster, referencing if I can't share them for free. That's what the court said. They want him to stop sharing them for free, so he did. But now he's selling them and shipping people USB devices. He said anyone can submit a file to sell on his platform. So now he's built a platform where people can, it's like user-generated content. Other people submit it. Maybe they're going to do ratings. And they're going to get 50% of the sales proceeds. Wilson said files uploaded must be liquid info, or things like CAD files, blueprints, and schematics. He reiterated users cannot resell materials they don't possess the rights to, and that Defense Distributed has already put the infrastructure in place to review user symptoms. Scousjack, they'll produce a 3D printed false flag. Of course. Well, they always put false flags about how people are going to die in the street if there isn't nationalized health care. There's going to be 40 million people dead in the streets. There's going to be people dead if there's weed grown in people's backyards, or if cancer patients use it, or there's going to be terrorist attacks if we don't continue the NSA mass surveillance. They always do that. Unfortunately, a lot of people are afraid. That's why it's essential for us to continue leading the way for liberty, showing people that it's better. And this has actually worked in spite of the mass propaganda for decades. on weed. Now, can it work with guns? This is basically what I've been arguing for years. Create sanctuaries for guns, and at least in localities. Now, Cody Wilson and Defense Distributed is creating an individual sanctuary for each one of us to do that. So the more people that do this, the more people that recognize that freedom is better, I think the greater chance we'll have of overcoming the message of the gun grabbers. But that's going to take some time, certainly. Yeah, Alan Mosley says, I love what Cody is doing, but I'm terrified that the powers that be would love to make him the next Ross Ulbricht. I think he's got to know that. He could get locked up in prison. They could go after him. Could someone shoot him? Who knows? Which would be just wild. Who knows? That's why I think he's a hero, because he's standing up in such a dangerous climate. And so that's why he's incredible to me. So he says, quote, today, I want to clarify, anyone who wants these files will get them. I'll sell them. I'll ship them. The free exchange of these ideas will never be interrupted. I'm also inviting the public to share their own files and share the profit with me. I mean, it's huge. Again, heroic. Allen says, the authorities demonstrate their tech naivety yet again by trying to, quote, shut down something that is already on the internet. That is an awesome comment, because that's what I'm going to get into here with what Cody said in this press conference. He called the judge hysterical. Like, just the judge is crazy town. Like, this old bat, I guess I'm an ageist, has no clue what they're doing. They did not suspend our operation, but wanted to unauthorize it. So they wanted to unauthorize the free release of the files. Mind you, they're already out there. When they were released the first time with the Liberator 380, they were downloaded over 100,000 times. They were put on torrent sites, BitTorrent, Pirate Bay. I'm sure you can find torrents all over the place for the more savvy. So people who want these files, it is impossible to get them out of there. So a reporter asked Cody Wilson why the Seattle judge's order was, quote, hysterical. Judge Lasnik seemingly did not. So Wilson noted that Judge Lasnik did not seemingly understand that the files are already out there. And that's what you're getting into here. Like, this is just insanity. You know, you can just look at a maximum security prison where there's marijuana prohibition, and people have got weed, they've got coke, they've got meth, there's drugs, there's weapons. This is under a total lockdown in a max security prison. And somehow they're going to stop the internet from sharing downloadable CAD files? This is nonsense. And Cody Wilson really hammers on this. H. Rossi says, a brilliant patriot, pledging all for the fight. Absolutely. A patriot, a hero. So let's make sure we give him some support. And I think it's freedom.bitcoin.com is the place where you can do donations. Not 100% sure. Maybe someone knows where it is, but that's if people want to donate to support this effort there. So here's what Cody Wilson, this is great. The judge accepts the plaintiff's article that the world would end if he didn't act. In other words, if you don't stop these files, if you don't do this court injunction, this national injunction, international injunction from a Seattle judge, if you don't do this, then there's going to be chaos in the streets. People are going to be dying. Everyone's going to be shooting each other. Mind you, the most people getting shot are by the U.S. government in some form or another, but we'll get some stats on that another day. But Wilson adds, this has already happened. We've lived in a world where you can download these files from anywhere. His description that some, quote, cybernaut can find these in the dark recesses of the internet. Well, they're discoverable within 30 seconds of Googling. 30 seconds from Googling. Just crazy. So people can do this. Oh, yeah. So Woodsider here on another point. I mean, we don't even get into this conversation. The 3D guns don't necessarily have the capabilities. Like, I'm no expert on firearms. I really suck. There's a shooting range here in downtown LA. I know a lot of people are surprised about that, but there's a really great shooting range that's open late. It's indoor, of course. They're really, really solid people there. I'm just bad. I was anti-freedom for many years, but I wasn't anti-gun. I came more from the mentality of Pete Seeger, who I guess a lot of people didn't like him because during the Vietnam era, he was very anti-war, and he did identify as a communist. His reasons were, I was anti-racism. The only people who were the communists. I was anti-war. The only people were the communists. Whatever. He had some really bad economic viewpoints, but he had this great song, this folk song that talked about, I'm not giving up my guns. You want me to pick up a gun? The idea of going to fight. You want me to pick up a gun? There's no promise on which way it's going to be pointing. Am I going to be pointing it at your enemy or at you? So that is the old lefty kind of viewpoint that I really liked. I mean, I've rejected and shed a lot of the other ones, clearly. But there were progressives, there were hard leftists and communists who believed in the right to keep and bear arms for different reasons. The collective destruction of the state, the workers, they had to be armed. So that's, Anyway, so Cody being heroic. They're not really saying that these guns, and I've heard from a lot of gun people, oh, wow, I wouldn't use one of those because I don't know how well it can do. I mean, I guess for someone who has a lot of firepower already, they're probably not going to go out and print an AR-15 or a 380 Liberator or an M9 or any of these other guns. And Woodsider says, imagine seeing a 3D printed gun mass shooter based on today's tech. He'd have to carry 50 to 100 guns hoping that each one actually fires. I'm not sure if actually have been that bad. I've seen videos of them working. Maybe they do take a lot of actual work. And I think Cody Wilson has talked about this quite a bit. He's like, look, I'm not giving people guns. Having the schematics and the CAD, the computer-aided design, which has been around since the 80s for stuff, that doesn't make a gun. This is the first step in learning how. There's got to be a lot of expertise in how to actually make the product and then put it together and make it work so you don't hurt yourself. So it actually has its proper intended effect. So he's sharing information. And a lot of people are referring to this primarily as a First Amendment, a free speech issue. Well, free speech is the natural right, the right to express your thoughts, to share ideas, to print things. And the First Amendment reflects the restriction on government from blocking this. But I also think it's a Second Amendment issue insofar as almost unanimous in 1988, the Reagan administration, they passed, maybe it was George H.W. Bush at this point, I'm not sure, one of those guys, they passed the Undetectable Firearms Act of 1988, saying that if the government can't detect the firearm, it's illegal. Now, I'm going to add the caveat, and I think Cody Wilson knows this because he referenced it in his press conference yesterday. Look, I'm not disputing the federal law on this. I think you can only take on strategic. You can only take on so many fights at the same time. So he's specifically not disputing that. And the way he's being smart about it, getting around it, is that his design, his files actually include small pieces of metal. So he's just trying to make a stand for being able to print firearms. Now, if some other smart person figures out how to take that design and make it with just plastic, kudos. Good for them. Cody is not fighting that fight, at least not yet. I think at some point he will. But the Undetectable Firearms Act says you can't have a plastic gun. And so Cody has done an end run around that. He can't be stopped under that law. Now, Jeff Sessions, that piece of garbage, the Attorney General of the United States, he actually jumped into the fray. He could have just kept his mouth shut on this. He not only showed his ignorance about what Cody Wilson and Defense Distributed is doing by talking about undetectable firearms. He doesn't even know that Cody Wilson's designs have metal in them to do an end run around the undetectable part, to not have to have that fight at the same time. But Jeff Sessions, and we get a nice report from Ryan McMakin over at the Mises Institute, Jeff Sessions wants to confiscate your guns. What a surprise. Last week, U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions announced he plans to set up step up prosecutions. He's going after them. You better watch out. You try to defend yourself with an undetectable firearm, he's going after you. He's going to prosecute, such as the 3D printed guns that have already received attention. Now, there are many out there that are not the defense distributed models that are also available, and I don't even think that's been kind of the conversation. So here's what Jeff Sessions says. Under federal law, it is illegal to manufacture or possess plastic firearms that are undetectable. Thanks, Jeff. Violation of this law is punishable by up to 5 years in prison. They're going to put people, Jeff Sessions, the so-called Republican NRA-backed administration's attorney general, is taking this view. He's going to put people in jail for making guns at home. Such firearms present a significant risk to public safety, and the Department of Justice will use every available tool to vigorously enforce this prohibition. He's bad on weed. He's bad on guns. He's bad on the Constitution. He's bad on your natural rights. He's bad on everything. We will work with federal, state, and local law enforcement to identify any possible cases for prosecution. We will not stand for the evasion, especially the flouting of current law, and will take action to ensure that individuals who violate the law by making plastic firearms and rendering them undetectable will be prosecuted to the fullest extent. Jeff Sessions is a gun grabber, period. Just based on that. Because some guns deserve to be taken, and people should be locked in cages for having them. Now, let's look at the Second Amendment. The Second Amendment, I can guarantee you, does not say shall not be infringed unless someone can make the gun at home. It does not say shall not be infringed unless someone can print their arms at home. It does not say shall not be infringed unless the government doesn't know about them. The right to keep and bear arms is the right to keep and bear arms, period. And the whole point of them is that you don't want the gun. So I guess this kind of plays Jeff Sessions, the monster, the anti-liberty, anti-constitutional, just piece of trash. He is playing off people having the wrong foundation. That people believe that the right to keep and bear arms is about hunting. That people should have these guns only to hunt, maybe fend off a robber, and then the government is really the overarching umbrella to protect all the other non-gun owners from the gun owners. That's what he's playing off. Jeff Sessions is taking that view, when in fact the right to keep and bear arms is there to keep a nasty government at bay. That's really the final check on the power of government. That's what the Declaration really sets in practice, that eventually, at some point, people use guns. So, Justin says they are all anti-constitution, so they're all the same to me. Scouse Jack sounds like Jeff is a swamp creature. Absolutely. And Alan Mosley over at the Gold Standard says the latest buzzwords for the gun grabbers are banning undetectable, and dangerous people. So the NRA a few weeks ago bragged. They bragged about it. They didn't just say, oh, okay, well, there's this Undetectable Firearms Act. They bragged about the fact that it was passed because of the NRA. The NRA lobbied for it. They got it passed, and they basically said this wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the NRA. It might be confusing because they also bragged about passing the National Instant Criminals, the NIC system, the background check system, which is also unconstitutional and shouldn't exist. So the NRA bragged about getting the Undetectable Firearms Act. They said that it's legitimate, just like Jeff Sessions. And this has nothing to do. The Second Amendment doesn't exist to these people. I think there are multiple reasons for it. Government doesn't like not knowing who can defend themselves. Government doesn't like that. And then, of course, lobbyists, maybe in the gun. Oh, I should have turned off my phone today. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know if you're hearing my texts coming in. But they also don't like it when large lobbying organizations, maybe some of the gun manufacturers are the bad guys on this. I don't know. I haven't looked into Glock and Kimber and these other organizations. I'd like to see them come out and say, Yeah, make these because we believe in the right to keep and bear arms, whether you're getting it from us or someone else. I believe in liberty, whether you're getting the information from me or Ron Paul or someone, Dave Smith, Tom Woods, whoever it may be, Jeff Tucker. I know there's a lot of competition and fighting in the liberty space, but as long as you're actually getting the information and sharing it, you don't have to come through me. If I was a firearm manufacturer and more people used firearms, it would make it more marketable for my own product. So I would like to see something from some of the gun rights organizations. So who knows? Who knows? So Jeff Sessions is awful on this. The Second Amendment, again, does not say shall not be infringed unless we don't know you have those guns. So let's get to the quote of the day. I'm running long as usual. This one comes from John Adams. John Adams, who I would probably talk trash about pretty much with the Alien and Sedition Act, but he did say a lot of good things. And he was well respected by a lot of people back then, other than when they were calling him fat and making fun of him in the editorials. So John Adams warned us about turning a blind eye, saying, oh, well, you know, it doesn't affect, I'm not trying to get an undetectable firearm. I'm not trying to get a 3D printer. I'm not trying to do this. So I'm not, it doesn't affect me. I'm going to be okay with it. So turning a blind eye, allowing government to violate someone else's rights because it's convenient for you or because you like the team in charge or maybe it's not important to you or maybe you actually like the violation of the rights. But as soon as you do that, it just ramps it up and up and up. And John Adams put this, he says, when the people give way, their deceivers, betrayers, and destroyers press upon them so fast that there is no resisting afterwards. So he says, nip the shoots of arbitrary power in the bud. Do not let them go. Any small arbitrary power that comes in, including the ones that he did, you have to nip it in the bud right away. Because if you turn a blind eye to it, it'll just grow so fast. And that is certainly what's happened. And it's even ramping up further from there. It's the only maxim which can ever preserve the liberties of any people. Kudos, John Adams. That is absolutely right. Kudos to Cody Wilson and Defense Distributed and everybody who's been backing him up. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm learning so much about this issue. I've talked a little bit about Defense Distributed in some speeches for about 3 years now. And I'm learning more and more and more as time goes. So I'm really excited to really dig in and get better at this. I hope you guys are learning something as well. You found something interesting here. If so, make sure you hit like. Smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel. Leave some comments of your thoughts about this or what you'd like to hear me talk about in the future, whether it's here live or in the archives. Post some comments on Facebook when we share later, on Twitter, here on YouTube, on our website. Send us an email, team@10thamendmentcenter.com. Join us as a member, 10thamendmentcenter.com/members. $2 a month really makes a big difference. We'll be back here again on Friday. Of course, it's going to be Ignorant Comments of the Week on Friday. That's always fun. 9:30 a.m. Pacific time. Thank you so much for watching again. I appreciate everybody for being here. And we'll see you on Friday. Have a great day.